Welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and we're here with Grayson Hill once again for Game 2, instant reaction. This one's going to be a little more pleasant, and I think you held it together pretty well last time, all things considered, for the voodoo that occurred, the Halliburton stuff that we talked about already. This game obviously had some interesting points, and I think it'd be nice because we talked a lot about, like, okay, what can OKC do this last time? And so really the script, like the way these usually go is, okay, how can the next team come into the next game, and how can it make this interesting again? And in this series essentially went 180 already. Like, it's just already back and steering the other direction now. And so we'll talk all that in a little bit. We have something else to address first. We're going to be doing a quick draft at the top. And the draft is going to be players in this series and hairlines and hairdos. And I will be taking first pick, and I will be taking Kenrich Williams. The reason I'm taking Kenrich Williams for the YouTube audience is on the screen right now. Yeah, my brother, this is bad. Like, this is bad content, but this is even worse hair. Like, this man is a millionaire.
New.
It's a millionaire.
Yeah, no, he makes per NBA minute what it costs to fix that. So I think that, nicknames Kenny Hustle. I think, maybe he just runs so hard his hair falls out very conveniently across just the middle of the back of his head. It's unique. It's one of one. When they build him a statue in 10 years, you'll know it's him from behind because it'll have that hairdo. But dude might not get minutes every night, but when he comes in, he's ready. We saw it against Denver. He, had a pretty big spark in that series and led to another Thunder win. And tonight he was excellent. The entire supporting cast was great. I think bench points were almost 3-1 in favor of OKC. So, they might not have the best hair, but he and the rest of the bench unit definitely answered the bell today. And, you look at the margin of victory and you think, oh, who cares about bench points? I mean, that the reason this isn't 2-0 is because of a lot of supporting guys didn't step up last game. And, the two most important ones for Oklahoma City, at least, J-Dub and Chet were 11 of 25. It's a bit better than 8 of 28, and it looked a lot better than the 8 of 28 they combined for in game one. Both of them over 15 points. Chet had 15, Jalen had 19. As I look at it now, first team since the Pascal Siakam, I won't say led, included 2019 Raptors to have 5 players over 15 points in the finals. That's Thunder basketball. Shea, obviously, MVP of the league. He's got, I think, 9 straight home or overall playoff games with 30 straight points. Wilt Chamberlain, the only name on that list aside from him. So any playoff stat involving scoring that doesn't have LeBron James on it is tough to crack. So Wilt has some company there, and I'll track down the exact stat. But it's just something I saw at a quick scroll through social media, which I did not do after game one. But much better from the entire team. Shea, I thought, was inefficient but great in game one. Almost eclipsed 40 points. That's a milestone for anybody. There are guys that you can hang your whole career on 40 points in the finals game, but had 38, wasn't enough. Came back tonight, had 34. 11 of those were free throws for those people on the internet, but I think he played really, really well. The team overall, just a lot more team offense, I think, not as much ISO. Shea had 8 assists. I think that it just looked a lot more like Thunder basketball, not just because they won, but in just how they did it. And a lot of guys getting involved. I think every player in uniform played tonight, which is, again, is more indicative of the final score. But a lot of contributions from a lot of guys. Hartenstein played 22 minutes. Chet played 28. So they, combined for 50 minutes in this one rather than the 40 in game one. So maybe not completely played out of the series, but I thought that we got a little bit more from a lot of guys that we needed, because it was Shea and a prayer in game one, especially down the stretch. And, Indy stayed true to kind of MO so far, just letting threes fly, especially down in the corners where, if you want to call it an Achilles heel for the Thunder, if you want to beat them, that's where you got his shots from. That seems to be the area they're comfortable with giving it up. And with so many quality perimeter shooters on Indy, you can get into trouble quickly. We saw it once, thankfully for my sanity. We didn't see it again, but it's just hard to watch tonight and think, how in the world is this series tied headed back to Indy? But you got to give the Pacers credit, give Carlisle credit. They came ready to play both nights. They cut it to 17 with 6 minutes left, and I was like, all right, I'm uncomfortable now. But obviously,
13 in the third
they
too.
closed.
That one felt like, okay. 13 just felt like damage control. You
Yeah, and
really just had to
Halliburton
survive
was
the
heating
third
up in the
quarter.
fourth too. Yeah.
By the way, A+ work from you too. Last thing on Cambridge, he makes $6.669 million. Like, I'm all about saving money, but
Very underpaid.
let's figure out the haircut. Enough about that. It's A+ work from you to transition this photo into an open, and it was A+ tier stuff. Lot to unpack. A couple of things I want to go over. I agree that Shea first game, it felt, I don't want to call it forced, but it felt like granted, people say his game's not sexy. I get that, but like it really did feel like 38, and it really did feel like 28. Like, it had that feeling of just, all right, like he had 38, and it was, I think it was some taking the foot off the gas. I really think, though, my biggest takeaway is, to your point about like sitting back later and watching this hypothetically in 3 games from now, and we're like, here we are again, another game 5, another, here we go, wrapping the shows up. I don't want to discredit the Pacers teams. I think they're actually really deep, really talented. I think they're a really well-coached team. I think they're going to end up being very forgotten in the realm of good finals losing teams potentially. But game 1 could very well just be like 2001. That could have been the Allen Iverson game, step over game, and that could have just been, we all forget about it again. I think it's very similar arcs of some of those teams too. And the Thunder, obviously just heading on that dissension. The Lakers just won the one already. So I think there's some interesting parallels there. Of course, AI was like absolutely just both shoulders carried that team everywhere he went.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest, where my analogy gets train wrecked. But the point is like, game 1 very well could be an exception to the general rule how this series goes. I'm still sure I lean that way. Part of the reason, this is something I wanted to get into, part of the reason I think that is true is because I think Jalen was better tonight. I think Chet was better tonight. I think Hartenstein was better tonight. I think there were so many guys that I can go down the list, and you mentioned way other guys that I didn't even say just now. Like, there's other guys that deserve any amount of minutes tonight on the show, but I still feel like all of those guys were 50% of their normal. Like, if they were 100% of their peak, the series isn't close again. And so the fact that you won by, what was it? Let's just round up and call it 20, whatever.
16. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that you won by almost 20, and I think those 3 guys right there, I still think those guys were C minuses. Like, I still think that was a C minus, C plus, some of those guys' game. I mean, it took a Caruso A+. Like, we can talk about him in a minute, but like,
Yeah.
I think the thing I really want to highlight, and I'm curious what you think about, is I think those guys still didn't play an A+ game of theirs.
Oh, they didn't. Especially if you look at just, pure shooting. 5 of 14 is a concert date, and that's not because you can't have an impact on a game shooting like that. But
That was
if
the
you're playing your
analogy,
way,
by the
yeah,
way. That was the analogy that I mentioned Jefferson mentioned on the
yeah.
broadcast last
Oh, I
3
know.
days ago,
Yeah,
and I could not for the life of me remember it. I was like, he said something really funny that was super young people relatable, and I can't remember what it was,
yeah,
and I sounded like an
yeah,
old man. So let me set the record straight. That was what he said, and it was really funny. And
yeah.
by the way, I was going to bring it up later potentially, but I think he's been incredible. I think he's an absolute A+. Has to be in the next couple of years of rotations of finals.
Oh, I
Like,
agree.
I think
Yeah,
Jefferson's been incredible. I just want to throw that out there. So, but yes, that was yes, it was a 5 of 16. It was a tour date, and shout out to Richard Joseph for saying that on there.
yeah. He was aggressive. Knew the shot was off. Got to the free throw line. Shot 9 free throws. Made 8. Second to only Shea in that respect. So he was finding ways to be productive. Chip in a couple rebounds. Um, 5 assists, a steal. Just finding ways to somehow contribute, because otherwise, like we've been saying, there are guys that will come in and contribute if you're not. And Mark's not shy about pulling people. I mean, Hartenstein is getting paid. He's got the biggest free agent deal in the history of the franchise, and he's not even cracking 25 minutes a game. So if it's not something that Mark can scheme up and see it on the court and have it play out to where he likes it, he's going to look at alternatives. And I mean, Aaron Wiggins was excellent tonight. I haven't said his name yet, and I probably should have led with him. Plus
really
24 and 21 minutes. I mean, that's you got to really be playing your ass off if that's going to be what the slash line looks like. 6 of 11, hit 5 threes in 21 minutes. If you show me that stat line, I would have said it was a pacer, just because of how the series is gone and kind of how they navigate teams that are thought to be superior to them. It's how they beat Cleveland. It's how they beat the Thunder in game one. Just unsung heroes coming in and being ready from perimeter when they get open looks or not open looks, and they make things happen. But Caruso A++. 20 points from him is can't ask for anything else. Getting almost 40 from him and Wiggins combined is incredible, and speaks to kind of how comfortable things stayed throughout the second half and throughout the fourth quarter, most importantly. And I can't remember if we were on air yet or not, but I said that, they cut to 17, and I was like, oh, geez, here we go again. And it's a 17-point lead at home with 6 minutes left. That's how just damaged I am mentally watching this game.
But that was pre-air, by the way, because we agreed that once James Johnson hit the floor, we both were like, all right, check in. We're getting the pod ready. But
yeah, I mean, that's right when I saw him, I looked down and you had texted me the link for the show. So that was
there was almost 3 minutes left when I did it. I was like, I still don't feel good about this either.
That was good timing. I refused to even acknowledge you had done that. I was like, no, it's not yet.
Yep. That was just preparation. But yes, I did not in any way feel like, okay, he's not even touching this link until
no chance.
A guy that doesn't play, but to beat people up. That's the only reason he's in the game.
No. Yeah. He like you said, Jalen Williams is much, much better than he played each of the first 2 games of this series. And if we had A+ games from everybody, this would be like Cleveland, Miami level destruction. But to the Pacers' credit, they do things that disrupt what Oklahoma City wants to do. And the pressure of the finals, regardless of what building you're in, a lot of these guys have never played in this series. Caruso being not a veteran, essentially the veteran of this team, having been to a finals, having won a championship, knowing what it takes and what you've got to do for the full 48. I thought he was excellent. He played 27 minutes. I mean, that's a very, very deep level of trust from Mark Daigneault, who is a very young guy, despite, the attrition of NBA coaches, making him, I think, the 5th longest tenured coach now. 5 years in,
which is insanity, by the way.
It shouldn't be that way, but yes, it's ridiculous. So I think that Casey Moss was very, very good again to start. Offensively, that's not why he's out there. Any points we get from him are a plus. Shot a couple threes. Don't think he sunk one this game, but again, that's all gravy. He's out there for defense. No foul trouble this game, except for Dort. But we can survive one of the kind of wing guys being in foul trouble as long as the rest can come in and put in good minutes and spell whoever's got 4 or 5. I think Dort had 5. But with the margin where it was a non-issue. But had this, gone to overtime or something stupid like that, then that would have been something we look back at. Like, did you really need that foul with 9 minutes left in the third quarter? But
that was stuff that we were talking about, though. That was stuff we were worried about in game one. A couple guys got their second or third, and I was like, okay.
You just start to play differently. You can't help it.
You do. It's on. You hold your breath the rest of the game, even on the court. A couple things. So we obviously talk about the victor, more because they won the game. I feel like we did the Pacers. I don't know if we did that much of a credit. Of course, 50% of this podcast is a fan of one of the teams, but neither here nor there. But the Pacers obviously were going to get their own thing at the end when we talk about how can they recover without losing voodoo magic in game 3.
Right.
We talked about adjustments, and Hartenstein, he was a plus 17 compared to the plus 2 he was last game, and he played 6 more minutes, and so.
Yeah,
I really think the 2 things I texted you, and I was like, I intentionally saved it. I'm all about looking for exploits. Like, what can a team, and it's definitely easier in college basketball to make these analogies, like, or try to find exploits. Not that I'm not a coach. I'm not saying it's easier to coach college basketball, but I think it's easier to pinpoint what teams are going to exploit ahead of time. And in the NBA, I have to kind of watch and figure it out. I think the Thunder did some of that as well, even as someone as good as Dagnall. But every time that Bryant was on the floor, Hartenstein was on the floor. I would almost put $100 on that fact every single time that I looked up, and I had to catch up. I texted you about it. I had to get to
effort for sure.
I had to I wasn't paying attention to rotations and stuff at first in the second quarter because I was getting home and trying to get settled. And but every time I noticed it, even watching it on the phone early, I was like, oh, interesting. Hartenstein's on the floor and Bryant's on the floor again. That's interesting. It kept happening. Every sub, it was like those two were glued at the hip. And I think it was a good thing. I think it was a true exploit that Dagnall was figuring out. Although Hartenstein did not have many points at all, he was able to abuse Bryant, move him around, get him away from other guys, get him into switches, and I think that was really interesting. And then once Bryant picked up the second foul, it basically neutralized him the whole game. He was done at that point, and I think that was a huge exploit. I think part of the reason isn't just specifically the Bryant thing and attacking him. They wanted to be better at rebounding in after game one. They made that clear. They played those two guys a ton, especially in the first half, and they only won the rebounding battle by 2. So I think they found something in this Bryant matchup, though. I think Bryant can really I think he's kind of a weird key piece for both sides to keep an eye on, because obviously if he keeps hitting these corner threes like everyone else and Brian Klay Thompson, like I mentioned before, then changes everything. But Hartenstein, the passing that he has as a big, he had 4 assists today. He had eight rebounds, 3 of them on the offensive end. Just knows exactly where to be at all times. What I specifically wrote down a pass. I want to say it was in the second quarter that Shea drove behind the back to Hartenstein. Hartenstein, basically flipped it to the left to Caruso for a wide open 3, which we're going to talk about him more, I'm sure, in a little bit, because it is 20 plus for a guy like that. That's incredible. But my point is I think the exploit is figuring out how to exploit this Pacer second unit and take advantage of that. And I think instead of the third quarter, I think they just tried to manage the third quarter, and I don't think they actually tried to put the throttle down a little bit. That's something I'm interested to see how that goes. That matchup specifically, I think they can really exploit. So,
yeah, and they did a little bit more of the 2 big lineup, and I think the offense opened up just so much more with the spacing and opening up passing lanes and that turning and looking and seeing who's out there on the perimeter, whether it's Caruso or Jalen Williams or someone that maybe shooting it a bit better, like an Aaron Wiggins, because they didn't do a ton of it in game one because like we said, the 2 of them combined for 40 minutes, and they played almost an entire quarter extra tonight, just aggregate minutes wise, and so I think that definitely helped the ISO default stuff stop and the everybody stand and look at Shea because there's 7 seconds left in the shot clock stuff. And I think that his 34 tonight was much better than the 38 in game one. And a part of that was because he could look around and see guys like, all right, you're hitting shots tonight. You're hitting shots tonight. If I throw it in the paint, it's going to come back out where it needs to be, not necessarily just me because nobody else is hitting shots. And I thought that it just, like I said earlier, it looked like Thunder basketball. The ball was flying around. It didn't matter who was shooting where. Obviously, Shea's going to take the most shots. He's the MVP. The ball touches, it comes by him every single time he's on the floor. And, the typical distribution down the line between Chet and J-Dub. And again, to your point, they were better, but not to the standard they've set for themselves. I mean, Jalen Williams is an all-NBA player in year 3. So finals or not, biggest stage of your career or not, you're going to be expected to do more than even 5-14, especially if that's an improvement. I think that, we essentially, I think, benefited more from what we got from Wiggins and Caruso because, like I said, after game one, if Chet and Jalen keep playing like this, we're going to keep being in spots like this. But tonight, I think there's slight improvement and a huge boost off the bench from guys like Kenrich and guys like Hartenstein, technically off the bench, and Caruso and Wiggins. And when you add all that up, you're just not going to beat them. Doesn't matter where they're playing. This could have been in an Indian night. If you give me those 2 stat lines for Wiggins and for Caruso, we're still winning. It might not be by 16, 17, but they're going to win the game. I mean, they're the most talented team, I think, in basketball. And to your point, the bench unit, I think the gap between bench units is larger than the starting units. And that's just me having a lot of respect for the 5 that Indy puts out to start games. And especially when you
if you want to get super technical and think about, where you weigh Case and Wallace versus Hartenstein and whether that's an improvement or not on paper, but the bench unit for the Thunder has gotten them to this point. It's the reason that they're 68-14 in the regular season. And I think that, if we would do win the championship, it's a best of 5 now. That it'll be in no small part because of that bench unit, because you can get everything you want from a starting unit, or so far. There's a lot left to be desired from that starting unit. Namely the struggles of Chet and J-Dub offensively, and Case and Wallace and Lou Dort are not out there for offense. And, I didn't mind less rainbow threes from Dort. That was kind of nice. I know he was 5 of 8 last game, but you don't love those until they go in. So I was glad that there were other options they felt more confident in, because if the default is, all right, well, maybe Dort will hit one, we're probably not having a good night from 3. And he's got a lot more offensive prowess than anybody with his defensive capabilities, but it's not something you want to lean on, especially not in a high leverage spot like a finals game. It's just not. I mean, he's had 30 points in a game 7. It's a game they lost. So, I mean, it's not something you want to hang your hat on, but similar to Kaysen and a couple other guys, if you get those points, you take him. It's gravy. They're out there for defense. You don't want to play 3 or 4 on 5 basketball on offense, but they're capable with open looks. But I didn't mind the slight downtick in shooting volume from Dort tonight.
Yeah, let me paint a picture for you. I want you to watch this game with your eyes closed for a second. I want you to go, all right, but instead of Caruso's minutes and impact, just swap it out for Josh Giddey. Is this 2-0 going to Indianapolis? Probably.
I don't know.
Is that how big of an impact that Caruso is from that from that transaction? He won you a finals game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I would talk myself into somehow not having a repeat of game 1, but I think at absolute best it's 1-1. But if that was the better tonight,
deal than Hartenstein, like straight up, it was.
If you want to run back tonight and not have that from Caruso, especially the defense, which Giddey doesn't have, then it's 2-0. I don't know that Wiggins can do enough in aggregate. I don't know that more shots for Chet or especially Jalen would have amounted to 20. So, and you feel the impact when it goes in. You're like, all right, that's our veteran, that's our rock in the locker room. Like, that's the guy we're going to. Maybe not statistically, but leadership wise and that experience that he's got, it's invaluable. You can't buy it. You've got to have it in the locker room. And they, I think, made a great deal. Giddey's getting the ball more on a team with much lower expectations. He's not getting pushed to the bench. And, when they resume their play-in prowess or whatever they've got going on in Chicago, winning 40 games a year, I think that he's going to thrive there relative to in OKC, where you have, a week of bad playoff games and you don't see the floor again. That's what happened last year.
I think a lot of it was confidence. I think a lot of it was the team lost confidence.
Oh, it was neck up.
I think it's a very interesting combination of, at first we all were like, okay, and we vaguely talked about this in game 1, but we've talked about this 1,000 times with this team. And if we have time later, I want to ask if there's anybody you're interested in with the 15th pick that would just slot right in. Because you have this guy, I don't know if you ever heard of him, Nikola Topic, that was at some point, that people are just going to think you spawned off the face of the earth next year when you play him.
He's top 5 guy. Yeah.
He'll be your 8th best player, 7th best player, which is ludicrous. People are going to think that this is just like cheating at this point. I can't wait. I'm telling, bookmark this right now. I cannot wait for the world's reaction of Topic. And
I'm watching the Summer League. You kidding me?
They're like, they got him when and how much for who? And it's just gonna be great. I can't wait. But my point is you think about just guys that fit the mold and the versatile bill. Really, the thing that Giddey always lacked was a jump shot, and I know that that's something that my analogy with Caruso was partly fodder. But the point is like, you don't have him if you don't trade a guy that at one point was a true transactional piece in this mold of, okay, this team's going to take a step. This team's going to take a step. Here they are. Okay, they've won 50 plus games, and are they going to win the finals? And think about 18 months is a long time, and you guys went from a 40 and 42 team to, okay, this team's a lot better, and they're really good, and they got beat up in the second round. to now we're thinking about like they're winning in 5. Like it's very quickly how things change. And a big credit to be able to move Giddey like that. Granted, I know Chicago probably it was just more about like the fact that he was so young, but it's a simple analogy. I want to play a game before we talk about Indiana because Indiana needs a few minutes here at 24 minutes already. Stuff flies by. I want to play a game. We played it after game 1 of the Celtics championship when Porzingis had a career game, and we were like, I forgot to play it after game 1 because of course you guys were on the other end of it. But let's play a game of who the heck's going to win the Finals MVP that's not named Shea. Because at this point, I'm not sure this game's worth even playing. After game 1 with Porzingis, we were like, this is kind of fun. We were like, this is interesting. And then Drew had his game 2, and then we were like, okay, now things are all out of whack. And it ended up going to a guy that we actually didn't really expect, which I thought was interesting. If there was a guy right this moment, let's say you do win in 5. Let's say you go to Indy, you win both, come back, you win game 5.
Right.
Shea, let's just say he averages 30 because at this point that's going to happen. But 4 of the voters get amnesia and I don't know, like the votes get messed up. You get the point.
Yeah.
Who the heck would it be? I'm just curious. This is just simply to follow up on last year. That's all this is.
I think if we rattle off 3 more consecutively and win, it's only going to happen with a much better version of Chet Holmgren. I think that he's had, if you want to look at narratives and how you guys win these awards, unfortunately, sometimes look no further than the Eastern Conference, whatever, Larry Bird trophy. I think it would, if we were, like I said, we rip off the next 3, it's because Chet Holmgren has steadily ascended from your stats were what to your stats were what, and we closed him out in 5 because I think he's that big of a piece. Yep. And I know Jalen Williams is billed as the number 2 guy. It's kind of a 2A, 2B, depends on the night. Chet does so much more than scoring, which I think gives him more chances to impact the game. Jalen an elite defender as well, but Chet being at the rim, I think those are lasting images if he just turns into Rudy Gobert before he gets lured out of the paint, essentially, and can just be locked down on defense. If he can hit threes more consistently, I don't think we're going to be having him shoot that many, but if they're there, that's another thing. In today's NBA, that matters because at that point, he's a unicorn because you just saw him block Miles Turner at the rim, and now he's hitting a transition 3.
I also had that play written down as well. That was
right.
we probably as soon as it happened, we probably both were like, well, that one's worth mentioning at some point in the next 45 minutes.
Right. And his start tonight, I thought keyed the entire team, and eventually, like it usually happens,
I had that written down as well.
His scoring is not something we're like, all right, we need 25 from Chet, 35 from Shea. It's just not. But he jumped out tonight
really quick. Point about him early though is he was intentionally aggressive. There's a difference between being intentionally aggressive
and probably
forcing
stringed him to do that.
Yep. Yeah. You don't force it. You just have to be. No, that he was exactly what he needed to be early, and it was perfect.
Just layups, touch shots, things he's comfortable with. Then he came down in transition, hit a 3. I think that was the only 3 he made.
Make Indiana think about him. That's the thing. But Indiana early, I think early, that really messed them up.
He led all scorers decently far into that game with 9, and it finished with 15. So obviously, a lot of his time was not spent trying to score. But I think that, if someone's going to take it from Shea, I think Chet has more ways to do it because rim defense and the transition stuff, and guys his size are not supposed to shoot threes, let alone make them. No matter how new the NBA gets, that's alien type stuff. So just giving Jalen Williams and the shooting stats through 2 games, whether or not we trust the voters to look further than that, I think that Chet's got the best chance of, if it goes 5. I think he would be the one that I would need to see the bigger improvement by. And then I think the voters would take notice of that. And again, if it doesn't go to Shea, I end the award. But for the exercise, I think Chet has the better chance of anybody else in Oklahoma City taking it home.
Partly joking when I asked the question, but also the fact that like you think about the drastic difference in contributors from game 1 to game 2, like there really isn't a second player for this award at this moment, and we've had 2 full games.
That's
like no guy other than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has strung together 2 games for either team. for you just consistently go well. And by the way,
no.
I always tell you, like, I lean best player, best team kind of deal, which no surprise in this series, of course.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
the thing with Shea, though, like, you talk about exploits, like Indiana has literally zero answer for, like, every time he has the ball, I'm like, all right, well, good luck, guys. And I really don't think you can win. I genuinely don't think there's any, maybe people, as soon as I say this, are going to get a comment about it. But like, I don't think you can ever win a series when the best player just absolutely, like, is that much better than everyone else.
It takes some absolutely historic stuff like we saw.
Like, if you talk about AI, like that, I mentioned the AI thing earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, give me that. But the rest of the team's a load of garbage. Like, sorry.
Right. We're thinking like
sorry, Eric Snow
type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the winning result of that is if you're the best team and you have the best player and he's playing this elite level,
that's a
I don't know
steep
many
mountain
times.
historically. It really is.
And so Indiana, I think, is digging themselves out of that hole. Speaking of Indiana, I wasn't like not impressed. They had 6 guys in double.
No, I mean
it's that steep drop off when you get to Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell. Matherin, I'm just not sure. Like, I think they got him in an interesting spot in that draft, and I think they thought maybe the defense was going to come along better, because I think if it did, he'd probably be like, I really think they thought he was going to be Neesmith, but like a better elite scorer at the rim. Right. And I think the fact that he's not right now, maybe like the fact that they're going with Obi Toppin and Neesmith over him in the next couple of years, like, it's really interesting because maybe it's just a development thing, maybe it's just a guys in front of him, maybe it's a confidence thing, but I really think he's been somebody that I've constantly been almost a little disappointed with. It's like, okay, when's he going to have the game? And maybe he's had one, and I'm just not, like, Pacers fans can get on me about it. Sure. Go watch Caitlin Cooper if you want to talk about that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's that drop off, like we talk about the bench. And without laying out the case super simply, like, I don't know if I have a great, and that's why I want to hash out for the next 10 minutes or so before we do something else. I really don't know a simple answer for last game. We were able to lay out, like, okay, this guy in this spot, this guy in this spot. And I'm not going to lie, kind of called it, except for Jalen Williams.
Right.
But the Indiana thing, I kind of just 10,000 foot view. I'm not sure I know what the fix is quick for game 3. So let's figure it out, because I think that's going to be really, really interesting. They're going to have home court advantage. They're going to have Tyrese Halliburton. They're always going to have that constant. But just looking at some of the performances tonight, like, I'm not sure I have a solid answer at this moment. Like, Obi Toppin had 17 again.
Yeah. And in a week,
look at the wrong side. Either way, he still had he had 3. No, he had 19 minutes. I was looking at the wrong score. I was comparing the two things together. They still they still had 6 guys in double figures. My point still stands.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to sell their souls out to the 3-point line, essentially. And they kind of half did it tonight. You could tell that they were trying to choose between being aggressive at the rim and racking up fouls on the perimeter guys and the bigs and just trying to go that route. Or I think they shot 43s, which isn't quite like Celtics level, but it's pretty
close. Made 35% of them too.
Right. And they didn't have an off night. They shot pretty well. I don't know if there is a fix. I mean, is the fix be down 15 with 5 minutes left and pray that Halliburton turns it on the fourth quarter again? Because him through 3 quarters so far this series has not been, spectacular, but it's all forgotten because of game 1. And tonight, he, I think, had 12 or 14 of his 17 in the fourth quarter. And it was good. It kept the game respectable, but it's not, you've got to have more from the best player on your team. You're not going to beat the best team you've faced all season in their house if he's doing that, unless you get some once in 60 years type scenario like we saw 4 days ago. Which if that's your winning blueprint, then good luck. This maybe goes 6. I think that there's certainly an opportunity for them to win 1 or 2 home games. I don't think the series is over at all. I think tonight was a huge, reset expectations. Like, all right, the Thunder have asserted themselves, at least in this instance, as the better team and looked like it for the full game, not just 46, 47 minutes. But I don't know if they can win a game without just shell shocking OKC. I don't know. Does Siakam have that in him? I'd expect more than tonight. I mean, he was 3 of 11. I would expect much more than from him. I thought Turner played pretty well. Halliburton, like I said, was great in the fourth quarter, and so was TJ McConnell scoring when no one cared. But I mean, they've got to have more consistent contributions throughout to keep pace and keep up. And it was an 18-point game at halftime, so maybe you just chalk it up to we got our game. Who cares? Just don't get hurt for the next 2 quarters. But that mindset's not what got Indy here. It wasn't like, oh, we'll roll over, get them next time. Like, no, like they've been down 3 possessions inside a minute, like 2 or 3 times and won. That doesn't happen ever, let alone in the same postseason with the same team.
I think their confidence was shot.
Yeah. And so maybe you're thinking like, all right, we cut it to, like you said, 13, or I mentioned 17, like that. When you zoom out, that can't be where you're like cutting it to. That needs to be where the run starts.
13. When they cut it to 13 in the third, I'm telling you, that was like the
run.
moment.
Yeah.
I immediately went, uh-oh.
Yeah. The arena shifted. It got quiet because when they were up 23, it was rocking. 2 minutes later of game clock, it was like, all right back where we started. Like, what was
it was even a carryover from the second quarter. There was 2 Carlisle called 2 timeouts, like manually, like early on his own, 2 minutes apart. You guys had like a 9-0 run in the second quarter. And it was, I thought like, okay, like this is where, that was when I realized, okay, OKC has a really good grip on this game. And then I got nervous because of the 13-point thing in the third. And like I said, it felt like damage control. It felt like managing it more than we need to try to kill them right now. Because what's the downside for a young team like the Thunder to try to kill somebody? There's nothing, because you can recover defensively. Right. And I know game 1, people are going to point to game 1. They're going to be like, here you go. Right. Like, here's a live example of why that's not true. But like, I think that was just true, genuine collapse. And I think that was just Indiana voodoo. I want to apologize to Benedict Mathurin. I was looking at the wrong statistics. I still believe, by the way, he had 14. This is not the game I'm talking. Like, this was a top 10 pick. Like, this is a guy that I still believe everything I said prior, but Indiana fans are going to attack me for the fact that I mentioned he hasn't had a game or whatever, and he had 14 in this one. He was -9, like 5 or 7 from the free throw line out of his 14. Like, everything I said still stands. He had less than 10 from the field if you take out his free throws. Like, the point being is he's not been the guy in that spot that they can rely on, that Aaron Nesmith eventually just completely has run with it. We hadn't, like, Vanderbilt, guy, of course, like, that's not somebody you were just like falling over in the trade market years, not even a couple years ago. And now he's like one of the best players on a playoff team, on a finals team. Like, that's the spot I thought Mathurin was in, and now Nesmith's in that spot. So the point being is that's somebody, like, they get him in the right place in the next couple of months and get him playing, and maybe take over that starting spot for Nesmith and play him back on the bench. I think Indiana I think they solved their bench problems immediately. And so I want to make sure I'm clear about the 14 and all that. But
sure.
I agree with you. I think they're going to have to live by the 3-point line. The problem is OKC has too much ability of getting guys to the rim, where Indiana's going to have to be forced into positions where, like, you're fine with giving up everything to Turner. Like, he's going to have 16. He had whatever he had in the first game. And like, him shooting 5 threes, like, that's right in OKC's lap. They're like, cool. That's the guy that
15 if he wants. Yeah,
he can make them. That's the thing. He can make them. But like, 1 of 5, you're okay with that.
Compared to everybody else on the floor, give him the ball. Because
second scoring wise, like Pascal, I mean, he had the 30-point game in round 3. He's had these situations where, like, I think they're going to go to him more, and then they don't. And lately, that's been Nembhard. So I wonder if Carlisle figures that out. Maybe, like, Nembhard's been great. I'm not discrediting that. He was 6 for 12 from the field tonight. He had a couple other. He was 1 for 5 from 3, 1 for 4 from 3. But he's been really good. He's been great on both ends. There's obviously, after game 1, things are going to be all over the place on Twitter. But I mean, there's viral clips of him, like, putting Shea in a blender, and like, that's a crazy thing to think about. From a guy that was a tough defender off the bench 14 months ago. Like, that's an interesting place for that guy to be. So I wonder if they really go to Pascal more, and they really try to feed into that, because OKC, a couple points you had Caruso on him, a couple points they even switched Wiggins to him. I'm not sure I love the long-term solution there. So I wonder if Pascal's the answer. I think that's maybe a simple answer. Maybe it's a lazy answer. Maybe it's hey, they just don't know how to exploit him right now.
Right.
But I mean, credit to your defense, because if he would have had 29 tonight if they knew how to get him the ball in the right position.
Right. I mean, there's nothing you shouldn't try at this point, this stage.
Correct.
If you think
not game 3, your first one at home, 100%. Place is going to be eerie.
I mean,
they're going to be eerily energetic. It's going to be like almost
Yeah.
nervous. Like that first few minutes for them is going to be really weird. So you got to try it. You got to try anything you can, throw it at the wall. If it sticks, it sticks.
Yeah, just try it till it doesn't work and then adjust from there.
I still genuinely believe this series goes 5. I didn't really force you to answer the question in game 1 because buzzer beater with 0.3 seconds and all. But do you really feel like this series, like you mentioned it kind of resetting a little bit, and I think that's the mentality, at least verbally, of okay. I mean, the lazy thing of like, if I thought these two teams were even, I would tell you. I don't believe that.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Like I don't believe that. But
they're
like
not.
when you call a series a reset, you think it's 0-0 going to game 3, and that's technically true.
Yeah.
I still feel like there's a gap right now. I still feel like OKC. I feel like game 1 was such a shock. I don't want to bring it. I think the AI thing might be 100% right from earlier to kind of full circle things here. But like, do you really feel like do you feel like you really have an advantage going into game 3, or is it truly like, okay, it's 0-0 now?
Yeah, I mean, I think tonight we saw a much closer version of OKC to OKC. This is by far, they're still a ways away from their best basketball because if they're playing their best basketball, I mean, they beat Nikola Jokic in a game 7 by 30 points. That's closer to that kind of mark. Now, do we need that to beat this Indiana team? I don't think so. I wouldn't say they played even B+ basketball so far. And you're sitting back thinking this really, really, really should have been 2-0 going back to Indy anyway. But you dare a team to come back and they do it to you. That's all you can kind of learn from that. Just don't put yourself back in that position. And I think I'd be very surprised if they didn't at least come back to OKC for game 5 with home court secured again, with the series being 2-2 with 5 and 7 in OKC. But I don't know. The middle between these two games, the two extremes we've seen so far, I still think the Thunder win those games. I know that Indy's been there and been in the trenches and been scratching and clawing. OKC's been coasting. I think average margin of victory in regular season was like 11 points. And you think, well, they haven't fought that many wars. How you know they're going to win? It's just they're better everywhere. They do everything that the Pacers do that's gotten them here better. Doesn't mean on a given night that it's a guarantee. And we saw that, like I said, in game 1. But I think it's just such a tall mountain for the Pacers to climb, regardless of the venue. They could play it in outer space. It doesn't matter. The talent is the talent and the players are the players. And I mean, if we unlock B Jalen Williams, forget it. If he's putting up 25-30 in addition to Shea, and then you throw in however many you want from Chet and, guys off the bench like Caruso and Kenny and Wiggins. I mean, that's all just at that point gravy. So, yeah, I think at least this comes back to OKC 2-2. But if it's 3-1 OKC, I'm not sitting here shocked. I said Thunder in 6 just because I'm a long tortured fan and I struggle to put that aside sometimes. But if I looked blindly at these teams and metrics, players, whatever you want, I probably would have said 5-2. A final sweep is just so rare because of what it takes to get to that point. I mean, even Denver, Miami, it was Jimmy Butler in a prayer, and they still stole a game. So
I think we went through this, did we not? I think we went through this last year because we were like blown away with it. I think 1,000% we not last year, the year before. I think OKC or Denver, Miami. I think we went through this. We were like, oh, when was the last one? And there was an obvious one that I had quizzed you on. Do you want to redeem yourself? When was the last one? I'm 99% sure I asked you this, and you were like, we both skipped over one. We were both like, oh.
Was it LeBron getting swept? Or was there another one? I'm forgetting.
Yep.
Oh, it's the Cleveland.
The Golden State Cleveland, 2017-18. That's the one we all just like, whoop, right overhead.
Well, I don't count that for Kevin Durant. So, yeah.
I was about to ask, would you like to guess Finals MVP? Kevin Durant, 35.2, 8.2, and 5.4. Before that, San Antonio, Cleveland, 2006-7. I guess that was the one, LeBron, you were referring to. But technically, it was him the last 2 times. There's another tip in the cap to the Michael Jordan fans.
Don't tell Skip that.
Free fodder for you. Lakers Nets 102. Don't tell Richard Jefferson. 94-95. Houston swept the Shaq Magic team. Man, that's interesting. I would have never guessed that. I knew it existed, but just crazy to think that Hakeem absolutely just did that to Shaq. It's wild.
Yeah.
After that, it doesn't matter. We're in the 80s. None of that, all the same matchups you would think. Okay. So I really do believe that I think game 3 is going to be, I think the one thing I'm going to keep an eye on, if I had to kind of like give you okay, this is really the thing that, see if I can go 2 for 2 on this. I think the guy that they really might, like, I don't know. I'm going to stick to Siakam. I think they're going to have to feed him and force feed him the ball, because I'm sitting here looking like, do I really want to put all my eggs in the TJ McConnell, Ben Shepherd basket? Probably not, because I think those guys
just hit 6 threes randomly. Yeah,
not even that, just like guys that you don't want to trust in those positions. Like, even though they've been really good, I think even the last 2 games, TJ had 11. He had a couple threes. He was 5 for 7 from the field. Like, what? But he's just such a reliable guy. Just Ben Shepherd may be too young. I just think they're going to have to force feed Siakam. I think they're going to find a way to get him in switches, and that'll be the thing to watch. If Siakam has a double-double by about early third quarter, I would probably get nervous if the score's still close.
Yeah, because if he gets going like that, it's going to be tough to slow him down rolling downhill. So, yeah.
You're going to have to trust a really young defense on their heels at that point. That's the part I'm a little nervous about.
Yeah.
Even though, again, you kind of rule everything out with this team because they're just this good. Like, young defense, like, what does that even mean anymore? These guys are older. They showed a graphic like Durant, Westbrook, and Harden were like 23, 22, and 22 when they made the finals, which, again, that's going to be the thing. Like, you never see the memes about the grandpa sitting around the children, and they have the book out, and they're like, well, Grandpa, tell me about that 2012 Thunder team. And I think it's going to be unbelievable in 40 years when we sit back and we go, yeah, like the guys that talked about, like, Magic Johnson. You hear about all those guys, like how they talked about Magic or whatever. We're going to talk about that 2012 team that same way. We're going to sit around in our 60s and we're going to be like, man, no offense, like, I'm doing this to you right now on the spot, but like, it's crazy that they have 3 top 20 score, and the Harden thing, we can put a caveat on that, but they have 3 top 20 scorers that under the age of 23, top 20 scorers all time now. That's where they currently rank.
Yeah, and only one has won a championship, and he couldn't do it on his own.
And they only made one finals together. Like, insanity, absolute insanity. So the fact that this team, young, these guys that I specifically mentioned because they showed the graphic, the fact that Williams, Chet, and Shea are all older than those 3 guys back then, and they're better positioned financially currently than they would have been back then, because that's why they traded Harden. That's the whole reason they traded him.
Oh yeah, they want to pay the tax.
So the fact that you're better off, guys are older, more experienced, been through the ringer. I'm more impressed with where this team is currently championship. Granted, I understand they're 3 games knocking on the door. I'd be ludicrous to say that back then. I think they won game 2 in 2012 or whatever it was, but
they won game 1. But
in 1, I knew it was early.
Should have won game 2. Yeah.
But they won an early game, and I would have looked like a prophet if I was like, hey, well, look at this team the way they are now. They weren't going to win 3 finals in a row. Like, I really think that this year's team is better positioned than that team ever was because of a lot of the circumstances we talked about in game 1 with where the league is, where teams are set up. That was actually, I was not prepared to go on that tangent, but here we are. Okay. Are you prepared to talk about 15th overall pickup possibilities? Because I joked about Topic earlier.
Yeah.
The point being is, like, you have a chance to really, really, like, sure this thing up for 2 or 3 more years. Because you find high impact guys at the 15th spot, this team gets better immediately. And obviously you bring in a guy that was at one point a top 5 pick perennially, and injuries got it.
If he was healthy.
Is there anybody you're excited about? This is just like the thing we'll close with. Is there anybody you're excited about the 15th pick, or is this like hey, let's package this, go bigger?
I don't think they pick at 15. I think they package it and consolidate, if nothing else, because looking at the roster, I mean, who are you going to take out? Who's getting waived? Who's getting, released to make it even at the end of this rotation? There's just so much promise and so much talent. We've got more on the blue in the G League that I think really the name of the game is you pick somebody, a late lottery guy you love, and you take 15 and you take 24, I think.
Yes, 24.
And you go get them. And you say, if you want more second round picks, here you go. Whatever it takes to kind of bridge that gap between, if the draft's at 11, the guy goes 12 or 13, we're sitting at 15. I think Presti's like, all right, I'm gonna pick up the phone because we're not at this point. We're not going to miss out on a guy because he's 2 spots away, and we don't feel like we're giving up too much because we can't roster all these picks. You physically can't. If you wanted to, you can't do it. So there's the roster crunch. It's going to be tough to decide who goes where because, I mean, you send guys to the blue, you may never actually realize their full potential. I mean, Caruso is an example of that. He, long, winding journey to the NBA to where he is now that started in a place where a lot of talented guys go and they don't come back from. So I've seen some Danny Wolf stuff.
This is crazy. We literally, oh my God. I was staring, guys.
My concern with that
you just said it. So
my only concern is I've, for 3 or 4 years now, have been on here talking about who I want for the Thunder draft pick wise. Presti never picks the guy, and they rarely turn out to be like what they're billed to be. So, I mean, I was on here asking for James Bouknight. So
I'll delete that pod for you. Tell me which one it was. I'll go back and get rid of it.
Presti's a little better at this than I am, and I realize that, but sitting here in my armchair with no knowledge.
For Danny, it's defense. It's defense. I'm not sure he slots into this team. Like if he's the Hartenstein role right now, that's the only problem.
Thing. Yeah. He's not a Presti guy, I don't think. Even if he was, we have the Hartenstein piece to it. Now, if we were relying on big J Will minutes, I could see it just as kind of like this is best player available at this position or this position range because, with today's NBA, a lot of guys can play several positions. So I would love a guy like that, just more of a – because at this point, we don't have a lot of weaknesses. So you can really shore up on strengths and make sure we've got the depth we need. And regardless of whether we're defending West champs or defending champs, I think that you can never have too much depth because injuries happen. The Thunder know better than anybody this year. Chet missed time. J-Dub missed time. Even guys like AJ Mitchell missed time after showing a lot of promise early on. So Caruso missed a lot of time, and a lot of that I think was preventative. But still, you can't have too many guys that are ready to go in a playoff series. And for rookies, it's asking a lot. I'm not going to be expecting 25 minutes from Topic throughout the playoffs next year, but I think if his talent is what it was billed to be this time last year, where he was on every draft board before the third commercial break, then I think that there's no guy I'd rather have making picks for the Thunder than Presti, and he's got more than anybody else in the league. He's got 2 picks to play with. June 26th, end of June, last week of June. Doesn't matter what the exact date, but I think he'll do all the work and he'll figure out who he wants, and that does not usually sync up with many mock drafts. Because the first thing I did after they did draft
we're going to talk about the mock draft in a second. The one I pulled up from Tankathon, it's 2 guys. I'm like, no shot they're taking either of these 2 guys. But good.
No, I mean it's when I heard Josh Giddey's name, I had to Google who Josh Giddey was because I'm not in this as much as you are, and I don't do draft prep or anything like that. And I tip my hat to anybody that does it, but I was like, who the hell is this? And why is James Bouknight still on the board? And, lo and behold, it became really apparent why that was because, guy can't play defense or turns out shoot. You can go see him in Greensboro for like $3. But
turns out he wouldn't have gotten you Alex Caruso either. So got him all worked out in the end.
No, he would have gotten us James Johnson. But yeah, I mean, I think that Presti is going to improve upon his already legendary. I mean, at this point, he's got to be the best drafting GM of all time. I don't know what other claim you could lay there. I mean, I know Miami finds diamonds in the rough and guys like Haywood Highsmith and, many, many others that I won't start to mention with fear of forgetting one. But
Danny Ainge, if you are okay with a 30% shooting clip, when you
I mean, that's
30 for 100,
every pick he makes in Utah, I don't know. Boston Ainge was certainly great. He set the stage for what they've got going now.
They better give him a ring. That's all I'll say.
They surely
never know. When you go to another franchise, stuff gets weird. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, they could have had Markelle Fultz too, so he better get a ring. So I mean,
that's so fair. Did he even get a contract this year? I don't think he did.
I don't think he did.
That's bad.
Because I remember in our Dynasty League, not that anyone cares, but we were like, can we forgive the contract for being bad? And no.
But the Dynasty League is a podcast of its own. I'll
Yeah,
be in
so
that league.
I will
It dies
submit.
or I die. By the way, that league will. It's just such a cluster. You know what? That I will be in that league till either it dies or I die. One or the other.
Yeah,
It's
it's gonna
so
be like the
funny.
Red Wedding in Game of Thrones or something like that. It's gonna be bad. But yeah. So I will submit Denny Wolf to the Sam Presti draft process, and who knows, Sam Presti's board. I would pay an unfathomable amount of money to get Sam Presti's draft board post draft,
Just to see it.
just to see.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I'm with you.
Because I'm sure that we get somebody in the top 5 just because one, it varies so much typically from, say, and obviously tankathon is not what ends up happening draft night. We see it every year. But
Yeah.
in general, that is in many cases an ear to the ground on consensus in the media and people that do it for a living and do it well. But there are guys that think outside the box, and guys like Ainge and guys like Presti that tend to do well because they go against the not the group thing, but what you see a lot in the draft boards and things like that. So,
I mean, to your point, like the difference of like what a guy's board. Of course, he probably doesn't even have like he just has so many good scouts out there that you really have such an elite department in that realm. It's not just Presti. It starts at the top and it comes down.
no,
Perfect
he's just
example,
the
like
figurehead. Yeah,
Andrew Slater, like who's now running the NC State Wolfpack GM role.
I know. I hate it.
Is absolutely just running through with a paycheck, and he's just like you can see the OKC mentality. Like you can see everything he's learned, and it's incredible to see a guy like that. Yeah, you mentioned like I'm in no way plugged in. Let me make that abundantly clear. But I've made friends in this business over the years, and it's really interesting. The one common thread, guys will never tell, oh, this is what the board actually was. But the most common thread you hear with people that are connected to the draft is if people saw the real board, and this happens in the NFL too, just from my understanding.
Sure.
If people saw the real boards of these guys, of these teams, like they would be absolutely blown away. It'll be a guy that gets picked in the 30s or 20s, and it'd be like, oh yeah, well, we had that guy like 8th on our board. And it's like it's about positional size, need, fit, things that a lot of teams people don't really think about. The reason I think that all of that is true is because Tankathon has Jace Richardson going to the Thunder at 15, reminding you that is a 6'1", 178 freshman point guard. Yeah, that fits the mold if I've ever seen one. Ridiculous. And then the guy I take back what I said earlier about both these guys to 24. If you can get Rasheer Fleming at 24, it's from St. Joe's. That's a guy you definitely are going to be Googling after this podcast.
I am,
because at one point he just was the fact that he's even in this position is incredible. He's 6'9". He reminds me of a little bit taller Jalen Williams. And that should be positive because Santa Clara, look how that worked out.
Presti will draft a wing. You don't have to tell him twice. Yeah.
Well, he's 6'9", 232, so he's taller and heavier, but they both have a very fluid, herky-jerky scoring, and I think that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that, decent A10. He also has some of the most steals in this draft class from last year.
That'll get you an OKC real quick. Yeah.
2 other guys I really think you should think about, or I think they should think about. Nick Clifford. That is a Thunder or a Heat written all over it. That is a contributing playoff team.
He's from out west,
Minnesota. Yeah,
Washington State,
Colorado State.
Sorry.
But again, I'd put you on the spot. This is not your fault. He's 23.4. He's a senior, so he's really old in that regard. But I think he's instant. I think he plays next year. I think he's Jaime Jaquez is good. Like I think it's that quick.
That's
last guy. If you're thinking now and later, Thomas Sorber from Georgetown. There's a reason this guy stayed in. There's a real reason this guy stayed in.
He's playing his way on boards from Georgetown. I mean, my God, that kid must be really good.
6'10" and a half, 263. He's a freshman. He's 19.5 years old, and he was second in the Big East in blocks. So that's probably all you need to know right there.
I heard steals. I heard blocks. So yeah, bring it on.
He was incredible. It's 2.3 blocks, 1.7 steals. At a freshman, 6'10" and a half. Yeah, this guy was legit good. I've got some
4
folks
stocks a game. Wow.
Plugged into Georgetown, plugged into the program that are just over the moon, wanted him back, but he wasn't. He's going to make more money in the NBA in 30 seconds than he would have last year or this year.
At some point, you can't hide it from the guys that
The fact that teams are thinking about him in the lottery, and if you could get him at 15, like. That would just be that would be ludicrous. I don't think Derek Queen falls to 15. Like I just don't think that's true.
I don't.
but he is projected late lottery. So
that could be a move up 4 spots kind of guy. Yeah. If
that
10 is still there.
If you're 10 or 11, that would be pick up the phone now, like goodbye. Because I don't think any of Malawak, Colin Murray Bowles,
Knipple won't be there.
Knipple won't be there at all. He'll be gone before probably 7. Yakachonis will be gone, and then at that point, these are all pipe dreams. So
Yakachonis is the Illinois center, correct?
Yes. Well, point guard, but yes, point guard, shooting guard, but big guy, 6'6". There's just a bunch of dudes in this draft that are just like, if they went to 4 different teams, I'd be like blown away for the team. I'd be like,
so refreshing after last year.
I know. Well, I mean, even like Flag, we can get into this. We're over a minute or over an hour now, excuse me. But like Flag, obviously, people expect, all right, like.
Well, once they trade the pick, yeah.
Yeah, right. They've already been posting stories about like the meetings they're having. Like, is that even legal? Like, the Spurs weren't allowed to meet with Victor until they.
I got an alert today. He's working out the 17th. I'm like, why the hell do I care? I mean, all right.
Yeah. Harper, interesting. Bailey, interesting. The guy I think I'm not ready to plan a flat. And by the way, I haven't done any draft like hardcore stuff this year. I've had to take some time this year off. But the guy I'm like probably I actually planted my flag in Clifford, Sorber, Wolf, and Fleming. Those are kind of the 4 I'm really excited about. But out of this cluster of guys that I wouldn't be shocked if somebody's just blown away with them and they worked out. As of right this moment, it's going to change. We can maybe do this in a few more weeks, but
sure.
I'm planting my flag in Trey Johnson right now. That's a guy.
I mean, he
got a corpse of a Texas team to the tournament.
I know, and I was impressed. Just I'm pretty good friends with a Texas fan, and just hearing, oh, they lost, but man, he's a Thunder fan too. It's like, man, if we could get him somehow and make him fit somewhere, whether he's a lead guard on the second unit or a scoring option on the second unit, he's been all about him. Now, he's not going to be there at 15, but
he's projected to go 6 right now. So,
yeah, if he goes 10th, no, there's no way. I mean,
you won't be the only call if he's at 10.
No,
I'm just saying right now, you will not be, but you'll be the highest bidder probably. You'll be the
No.
That's one thing I like about Presti though. He's not willing to overpay ever. Like there's never a moment where I feel like he's overpaying. Because even in hindsight, we look at Shea and we go, "Huh, that somehow feels like an underpay."
I mean, it was
it's nuts.
I pulled it up, the Tankathon mod. Do you think Edgecombe at 4 is interesting? Do you think Morey would have the stones to really to pass on him? Because I think that he would be excellent for a Philly team that needs a little bit of everything. Obviously, their biggest problem is the center, but there's no one. You're not taking Malawak that high. There's nobody to really fill that need necessarily. And you've got Maxey, and you've got the should have been rookie of the year from Duke, whose name I forget somehow. It just doesn't seem like a Morey pick. One, because I believe in his long-term NBA success and future, but also just I just can't wrap my head around Rutgers going 2-3 for a team that was that bad. Like, how are you 40% comprised of top 3 NBA picks? And that's just me not watching enough college basketball, but I just couldn't believe that.
I don't. Everyone seems convinced that Bailey's going to be the 3rd pick. I think the issue with them, like, and maybe you weren't alluding to this. I'm just going to paraphrase you here, but like, it's very. Do I think he's dangling the 3rd pick around? I don't think I don't think the answer is 0. Like if it's a 0 out of 10, I don't think the answer is 0.
Get me out of the Paul George business and take number 3. Yeah, I mean,
at the same time, I had to Google the expression to make sure I had the expression right, but I do feel like this applies. A bird in the hand is worth more than 2 in a bush, something like that. Where like
but what do they have that many birds in the hand right now? I mean,
that's. The 3rd pick is kind of your bird. Like it might be worth more right here. Let's just take it and figure it out versus the Paul George problem. Like it's a whole nother can of worms that we just don't.
That isn't that. Yeah.
But the fact that like I'm not putting the mortgage that I'm currently sitting in right now that he's not trading the pick. That's for sure. Like I'm not doing
Just in
that.
such a
And so
bad spot. McCain is the rookie. Sorry.
I
But
think I knew who you were talking about, but I just didn't want to be
yeah,
like, oh, that
sure.
guy. But yeah.
Yeah.
But like
They're in such a weird spot. They
they are.
just
You have to
because
pick. You have to
Maxey,
pick right now.
McCain, and stuff is awesome, but then there's $60 million worth of center sitting on the bench, and then the corpse of Paul George, and that's pushing $100 million in salary every year.
To your point, though, does 3 help you get rid of Paul George and then like let's just retool around and beat again? I'm not sure. I understand.
As a fan of the team that holds their top like 8 protected pick, yeah, no, go be the 12th worst team. I don't care.
I love that you're getting your 24. By the way, I love how you're getting that from OKC or from the Clippers too.
The Clippers, yeah,
so funny. It's just so like I laugh. I'm like, and then 15's from Miami. Both those teams would be in a lot better position if they were making both those picks. I'm just saying.
I almost feel bad for Miami. Like we just donate the pick back, give them 24.
I think it got swept under the rug because that deal got done not long after all the Brooklyn stuff settled dust finally. And so a lot of these deals, yeah. So I think this timeline of the Miami thing, people are just kind of like, "Wow, trust Pat Riley." Like I don't know, trust a senile man for that much longer. Like God bless him, but like at this point, like I love the guy, and I'm pretty sure his book's like over my shoulder. I may have moved it, but I'm pretty sure his book's literally right over here. But the point is, like, you just man, hand up that situation. The fact that they made 2 finals in that stretch.
That's the issue.
Like,
that's where the ball is. Once you get there, it's like, okay, this has been established. This is the ceiling for our team, and we can surely operate just under that ceiling, and they just can't. Which speaks to how impressive it was in the run by Butler and other pieces that have since I think declined a bit player wise. One more draft thing. If I gave you an over under of 20.5 for Walter Clayton Jr., what would you take?
That's the other guy I forgot. Sorry. That was the third. If he's at 15, like they really like it. Like if he's their 8th best player on the board, just take him.
Presti did what relative to the ESPN best available or whatever garbage they throw on TV? I would take under. I mean, I don't care where he's mocked. I would take under because it takes one team to fall in love with you. And I think especially the exposure of being a national champion and playing that many huge primetime solo games and performing to that level, reviving a bit late, similar to how Halliburton has a little bit. But I think that if I was going to take a guy, and just this is one mock draft and looking, 3 weeks out or whatever it is, but if I was going to take one guy to move up more than 5 spots relative to this, I think it'd be Clayton, and it wouldn't be close.
20.5 was the number?
Yeah. Over under 20.5 draft position for him.
The issue for me in that scenario is I'm not sure Miami takes him at 20. So that would be my half right under right there.
Right. Yeah.
Brooklyn's not taking him. Mm-hmm. Washington's not taking him. Miami would. Miami, like, let me be clear. Miami probably would. Minnesota can't take him unless they think he's the Conley replacement. But then you have Conley problems again. Yeah. So it's
then Conley's still sitting there. It's like, wait a minute.
Well, no, not even that. Like you're thinking a year ahead when you take Clayton there because, like, Conley is probably done within a year, and so like, but my point is he's basically the same player. So you have the same problems defensively. I don't think you're fixing anything with him. I don't think the Magic take him.
They have enough guards finally. Yeah.
You guys, San Antonio, Atlanta at that point lottery. I actually think I might take under. I think there's just no positional fit or need anywhere between 15 and 20. If it's not Miami, I'm taking under.
You make it to 15, which is I'm looking at it, thinking as hard as that is to believe. If you're looking at looking around, clicking around, I think that there's teams in that range, like a Spurs, like a Thunder, that would be like, look, for whatever reason, they're very different reasons, Spurs and Thunder, but like you don't have to be the best version of yourself in 9 months. Like we can bring you along. We're gonna have Chris Paul. We're gonna have Shea. We're gonna have people to to guide you along, and we're not gonna need 30 minutes from you in a playoff series because we're a 6 seed, scratching and clawing because we miraculously got in. I think that they're going to be able to be patient to maybe not to a fault, but to the point where they're like, this is going to work when we're comfortable with it, not because we drafted you to come save the franchise. And he's not that caliber of player, but I think just that jumped out at me looking and seeing he's at 25. And I was like, I don't know that he'll be there.
I really think it's the fit positional thing. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. You might have me up the rest of the night, like while I'm editing the show, trying to figure out this because I'm genuinely stumped now because he's
I'm
not
curious
going
what the
to take a
prop
ton.
actually is. And I'll text you after this when I look it up. But
Yeah. He's projected to
wonder
go
what that
25 to
is.
Orlando, and I don't love that fit whatsoever.
no.
His downfall is the Nets have 19, 26, and 27. At that point, do you just take him? Like you have
If
3
he's
shots
there,
at
yeah.
him. Like, I mean, good grief. From everything I understand about him, I talked to some folks that spent some time with him the last 2 years, and he's the hardest working guy in the room. Stereotypical stuff here, but like he's also a bulldog. Like people just don't realize, like even the defensive problems, the small guard thing. Like I'm not going to sit here and give you some lazy comp. Like he's not going to get bullied. Like he's going to figure it out. He's going to find a way to figure it out. And so I just fear teams don't believe that sometimes. And so again, without going down the same exact, C thing I said 3 minutes ago,
Right.
it's either 17-20, Miami 17 or Miami at 20, y'all
Right.
at 15 or 17, Minnesota. And then I already laid out the Minnesota thing. I think if Clifford's there, for example, they're not taking Clayton at all. They're not even looking at Clayton because if Clifford, they can get Clifford at 17 like they're projected here. Like they win. That's done. Like
that whole draft room's jumping up and down. Yeah, I mean,
if they get Clifford, I'm so serious. If y'all play them next year and they have Clifford, like you need to be nervous. Like Western Conference Finals, Thunder versus the Wolves, and they have Clifford. You guys
not
don't.
that he needs
I would
it,
be nervous.
but you spend enough time with Anthony Edwards. Yeah, I mean that's.
I think he's that good. I'm really excited for Clifford. I think
that's
Tommy
on
Hawk is
fire.
good.
I mean, I fully expect for the Western Conference Finals to be a rematch next year. Honestly,
it's gonna be so much fun.
June 9th, I'll tell you that.
Well, hopefully, potentially, maybe the Thunder are defending champs at that point. Maybe it makes that more interesting. But 110 here, we'll get it wrapped. Yeah, I love the draft stuff. We'll spend a little bit more time on it as we go, especially if the series gets out of hand quickly. We'll be recapped in 30 minutes and we can do draft for 30 more. I don't care. But yeah, we went 110 on a 16-point game. So hey, it's fun stuff. It's also late. So wait, 12:02. Look at there. Like we're NBA TNT, hands up, we're getting out of the studio. So well, I can't say TNT anymore. NBA, ESPN guys, you get the point. Crazy stuff. Anything else on the way up?
No, that's it. I will say I enjoyed this much, much more after a win and not a devastating, heart-wrenching loss. So hopefully
you held it together a lot better than you're giving yourself credit for after game one. I couldn't believe it was that I know you've got to people around.
I've yet to listen back to it because I honestly, part of me just doesn't want to know because I probably, especially the video of it, I'm just sitting here like slumped in a hoodie.
Yeah, the morale definitely wasn't A+, but
between now and Wednesday, I will listen back to both of these and grade myself and hopefully another post Thunder win pod in the wee minutes of Thursday morning.
Oh God, that's so far from now.
But yeah, they finally get rid of the extra day for game 4 though, so we'll be Wednesday, Friday this week.
That'll be perfect.
I
love when the games fall on weekend nights like they're supposed to. It's amazing. Like, oh, here's this Tuesday. It's like, what? No, like no one wants that. Right. They are doing a better job. I get that it's a central time zone. Is Indianapolis central time zone? They have to be. I think they're right there and on the line or somewhere. But I'm trying to think. I'm like, oh yeah, some of the guys I do the pods with. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt right now. They those guys are central time zone, Indiana, and then you have another central time zone team. So that really helps. Thank God for not having a team west of Texas because it's kind of annoying. When Denver was in it, we were trying to plan these 9:22 tips. It was like
awful.
Okay, good luck. Here we go. But yeah, fun stuff. On behalf of Grayson, on behalf of the 1009 podcast, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe right down below. We'll be back after game 3, like Grayson said, early Thursday morning or late Wednesday night, whatever. It should be interesting. Game 3. I think this series we'll get right back into the Thunder's hand, but should be fun on the road at Indiana. You never know what's going to happen. So on behalf of Grayson, on behalf of 1009 podcast, this has been the 2 Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. We will see you Wednesday night.